guys, I'm sure coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. Welcome to the video, guys. Glad to have you all here. Send us some positive vibes, some love your way if you need it. How was your holidays? Happy New Year to everybody out there as well. I'm doing great. I got through Christmas okay. The last few days have been assembling a lot of toys, and I'm not the best assembler out there, guys. I'm getting better, you know, as my kiddo grows up, but it's never been my strong suit, you know.
No matter how bad you wrap a gift, you probably ain't this bad.
What'd you get, Charlie?
I don't like it.
Anyway, been doing a lot of that. My kid, I think I told you guys, but he's super into Minecraft right now. I'm too old. I never got into Minecraft growing up. I was more of like a
Freak?
I don't know, ColecoVision and television Nintendo. So it's very old. But that being said, is I'm enjoying it. You know, he loves building stuff. So everything we got, Minecraft pajamas, Minecraft Legos, Minecraft everything, you know. So that's what I've been up to. You're just drowning in Minecraft, but really enjoying it as well. I hope you guys had a great holiday as well. Today I want to talk about stun sets. You know, for stun sets, they've been a, you know, forgive the overused clickbait phrase, but they've been a cheat code for a while, for the last couple years, for secret room content. Before that, just to help us progress in faction wars, basically restrictive content that you can only use certain champions in the game. That's when stun sets generally helps the most, because that content can be incredibly challenging. I don't know what this room is. Well, here's, I don't know, maybe not the best example, but it's like lizardmen only champions, right? It's so restrictive. And sometimes, not necessarily in this case, but in a lot of content in Cursed City, even the epic only content, I mean, you're going against very hard, even including legendaries, waves, right? So the best way to not die, Boxing Day. What is Boxing Day? Forgive me, but Boxing Day might be like a huge holiday somewhere in this game. I'm gonna just totally diverge and go on a quick digression here. One of the biggest marketing tactics is just making everything in celebration of a day, right? So just be aware of that. Be aware of that. Everything's a day. It's National Book Day. So here's a few books for $100 to skill up your champions. It's National Friend Day. Okay, so here's a discount of $1,000 for companion champions. Be on the lookout today. Happy National Book Day, or excuse me, Boxing Day to everybody out there. Okay, getting through some of this content, you're going to really benefit from stun sets specifically, right? Some of this stuff is very challenging, especially when you cross over to Soul Cross, right? Some of these waves are just really difficult. The best way is to slow RNG it and hope to stun them, because again, they can't kill you if they're stunned. All that being said, right, I'm going to go through every faction and give you my best stun candidates or stun set candidates in the game. Two quick notes, right? Number one is mythicals, legendaries. I'm not a big fan of putting them in a stun set in a lot of situations, not in all situations though, and I will be including plenty of legendaries in today's list. But I guess what I'm trying to say here, guys, is to put a Krisk the Ageless, just because he has an AoE on his A1, we're making a sacrifice every time we choose stun sets. Stun sets are great for, you know, mob boss minions, right? Or boss minions, excuse me. PvP inside the arena, it's great. It's great disruptor inside the arena, great control, and it's great in wave content, as we already mentioned. But there's so many other areas that a lot of legendaries and mythical champions, and even a lot of epics, shine, that would be so more advantageous to have different artifact sets. So I say all that to say that there's not going to be a ton of legendaries in mythicals, because in content that has, you know, that allows you to use a lot of legendaries and mythicals, it's usually fairly easier because you have better champions. Not to say that you can't get utility out of a stun set on Krisk, but hey, I'd rather have a curse set maybe on Hydra, for example, right? And you don't want to be muling your artifacts around too much in this game because it costs so damn much to do so. I would love to have, though, a swap gear feature in this game, man. Oh, with all this restrictive content, all these areas and reasons to have multiple builds for your champions, it'd be so nice to have an alternate build that you could just swap between for free, as long as you don't remove either of those 12 artifacts from your champion, you know? Being able to have two builds would be a huge quality of life difference. Then you could run a Krisk in the stun set for a particular area of wave content that you can't surpass. But I say all that to say, when you choose stun, guys, you're also making a sacrifice, and it's pretty intuitive, it's pretty obvious, but it's worth mentioning. You know, I could be throwing away, for every stun set, I'm throwing away 80 accuracy and 10% speed off of 2 perception sets, you know? And obviously that applies to everything else, relentless, reflex, whatever you're using, you know? Regeneration, savage, lethal, I can go on and on and on. There's a lot of good sets in the game. So stun set, just because they see an AoE on the A1, doesn't mean it's the best set for everybody, especially as you get higher in rarities. All right, let's get to it here, guys. Let's start with Silven Watchers. There's not a lot of Silven Watcher stun set candidates, in my opinion, nor are there a lot of Shadowkin, so we're going to move really fast at the top of this video. Good, because I just did a 5-minute preamble. My favorite is actually Pathfinder Kate. Again, I'm going to be pretty rare and epic heavy in today's video. Pathfinder Kate is a pretty cool champion, right? I like her. I built her, have a guide on her on the Raid Champion guides, and I put her in a stun set as well. She has an AoE on the A2 on a 3-turn cooldown, and she's also increasing the cooldown of a random skill on each target by 2 turns. That's at a 50% land rate on a 3-turn cooldown for a rare. That's actually pretty good. So what I'm doing is I'm adding more control into an already pretty good control ability for a rare, adding that stun set in there. She only has 1 AoE. It is on a 3-turn cooldown, but I like having her in a stun because she's a rare and she's not bringing a ton of utility anyway. So that's another way that I look at stun sets in this game. What type of champion doesn't bring a ton to the table, but can we get a ton more of control vis-a-vis a stun set? And the one thing I will mention too, I'll stop with the big long, you know, digressions here. But
yeah, but what?
The one thing I should say is on every stun, not every, on a lot of stun set candidates, we want fearsome presence, right? To bump that up, that chance of a stun from an artifact set from an 18% to a 23% chance, you know, per stun shot, right? Per you know, hit, basically, not per hit, but per ability. They fixed that, by the way. Like a Mighty Uko can't pull off 2 stun chances or 2 stun checks on that same A2 ability. But either way, 23% is really nice to get that 5% bonus. So Fearsome Presence is great. And with Fearsome Presence, you want to pick up Harvest to Spare. It's on the way anyway. That allows you to have a 60% chance of placing a leech when placing a stun, even from an artifact set. And of course, with these leeches and with these stuns from Fearsome Presence, or from, excuse me, the stun set, we do not need accuracy. It's really important, especially for new players, to recognize that. Debuffs that we're landing from artifact sets do not require accuracy checks. Holiday pack. So now it's just a benign holiday pack. It's just a holiday.
The holidays, but plane tickets are expensive.
Okay, back to it here, guys. Sorry. That's all important to say, though, because I mentioned this before, but I'm staggered by the new players and the new viewers here. The first-time viewers that watch every single video. Thousands of first-time viewers every single video I put out. So if you're new to the channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm your mediocre host, Ash, and I like Raid Shadow Legends. All right, here we go, guys. We're into the Shadowkin faction. I love a good Sashi. I love a good Sashi. She's got her whip. She's got her bodysuit. I like Sashi.
Stop looking at her, I mean it!
To get the AoE on the A1 with the decreased accuracy. Hey, land the decreased accuracy, and while you're at it, land a stun there, Sachi. She's also got a decreased crit rate in a leech on a 2-turn cooldown, which is pretty cool. And then she has a turn meter fill of all allies on a 3-turn cooldown as well. So basically, you can kind of oscillate between the A1 and the A3, and not even have to use the A2 unless you really need it, and just get a lot of stuns in there and get the increased attack on all allies with the turn meter fill. It's really cool. I like Sachi in a stun set. The other one who I really like here is actually Wuji. Wuji and Sachi. Wuji is a very fun, maybe a little bit of an unsung hero, a little bit of a hidden gem. She is a force affinity. She's attack-based champion, almost 1500 base attack. On her A3, she's bringing a counterattack, okay? On a 3-turn cooldown to herself. A perfect veil and a counterattack. And then she goes in, and check this out, will attack all enemies instead of one when counterattacking with this skill, also landing the big version of Weaken, right? So she's got that beautiful counterattack. She's got the AoE because she's going to be under the counterattack, and then she's landing the Weaken and she's landing the stuns. So she can be a very, very sneaky good candidate of a stun set. I like that she hits hard, and she has the lowest HP in the game for an epic, or close to. I think she's going to be right behind Fat Man, right? At least he has body blow passive to mitigate some of that damage, but she does have a lot of defense. It's very interesting here. I gotta admit, I've built Wuji and I haven't used her that much. Any of you guys have any experience with her? I would love to hear from you guys. I don't particularly love any of the epics here in Shadowkin, but we go to Dwarves. You'll probably notice I passed up like White Dryad Naya. I'm also going to pass up Geomancer. I wouldn't recommend him in a stun set necessarily, just because there's so many sets that I feel like are better on these amazing S tier epics and legendary champions. Instead, I'm focusing again on a couple rares here in the dwarf faction, right? So I'm gonna go to one of my favorite rares in the game, probably my favorite rare. It's Kurzad Depart. Now he doesn't have an AoE on the A1, but my man does have a decreased speed. He has an AoE on the A2 on a 3-turn cooldown, and then an AoE on the A3 as well, also on a 3-turn cooldown. He's also bringing the big version of increased accuracy for everybody. He's also bringing the small version of decreased defense for all enemies.
So much work for hardly any money.
You know, you need 150 books on this dude, but I think he's worth it. He's one of my favorite and I think most underrated rares in the game. I put him as a top 5 rare in the game personally. The first champion too in the game to have increased accuracy. Not that he gets anything for that. He doesn't get a trophy for being the first champion with a buff Ash, but pretty cool there. Candleguard is the other one. She's similar to a Kurzad in that she can hit hard. Candleguard is a nice little sneaky rare nuker, and especially with like a Candleguard, just take her to level 50. But put a stun set, not your best artifacts, but just put a stun set on her. She got an AoE with the weak version of Weaken on a 3-turn cooldown, and then another AoE on the A3 ability. She's placing an increased attack, increased crit rate on herself before she attacks. This is on a 4-turn cooldown, but again, it's 2 AoEs in a kit. She'll have a lot of opportunities to land stun and do some nice damage and bring a debuff all at the same time. So those are my favorite dwarves for stun sets. Let's move on to Knight's Revenant. And I do want to mention a legendary, our first of the video, and is Theodore the Savant. So Theodore the Savant, I mean, this dude is an S tier legendary. So it's crazy that he makes the list, right? But this is the way I look at Theodore. What set are you otherwise putting him in, right? You know, you can make a case for maybe Relentless, you can make a case for just speed or perception. I would say most people probably run Theodore in perception or maybe some kind of a regen type thing to have him solo content, right? But he has an AoE on his A1 with decreased speed, basically the same as Krisk's A1. You could consider a stun set. If you're already running him with like accuracy and or perception gear, you could consider just putting him in a stun. And then even if you're like, you know, not speed running Poison Combust Cavalax Eleanor, but if you're just doing a fast run on wave content with a Theodore the Savant, especially in progression, you can get the stuns and then everything else, all the poisons and the instant activations, a lot of survivability. But if you're not killing them, you can stun them at the same time on the A1. It wouldn't be my first choice, but if you're using him again mid-game, I think it's a definitely a viable shot there with Theodore the Savant. But my absolute favorites in Knight Revenant, guys, is going to be, or Knights plural Revenant, is going to be Senesha, the sisters. Senesha and Skullcrown, you gotta love them. Senesha's so freaking good, man. She's got a full target skills on cooldown. She got the healing the ally with the lowest HP. She got one of the best heals in the game on the A3 Immortality. And then she has an AoE on the A1. Extra hit on enemies with less than 50% HP after the first attack. I love me some Senesha. And of course, after all these years, I still love my Skullcrown too, guys.
How about you give me a reason to break your skull?
She got the AoE on the A1, extra hit, and the target has more than 50% HP. So if you have them in a blender comp, you can have a lot of fun, by the way. So go with an ally attacker like a Fat Man, whoever you got on your account, and then run the sisters together, Skull, Crown, and Senesha. Put them both in stun sets, right? You're sacrificing a little bit of damage instead of going with the, you know, Savage or lethal gear, but you can do some fun freaking things. Ally attack goes in, 2 AoEs go in, both with stun, both with fearsome presence. Or you can go with Helm Smasher, right? Ignore some defense, whatever your fancy is. Either way, make sure on a team like this that we're going with Skullcrown in that first position, right? Or the second position, depending on, like, if you're using let's say you're using a Cardial as your ally attacker. Run him in your lead spot, and then Skullcrown next, and then Senesha. because even on those ally attacks, you guys know they're going to go in order. So we want her to go first, place an extra hit if the target has more than 50% HP, which is more likely, and then let Sinesha go next. Anyway, they're both amazing stun candidates there, the sisters. I wanted to throw I want to throw a real mention to Executioner as well. Executioner is a pretty cool dude. He's a tanky defense-based rare champion, and I like Executioner, I always have. He's got an AoE on a 3-turn cooldown when booked with a decreased speed and a decreased turn meter by 20%. It's a very nice ability. Throw him in a stun set, get even more control out of that A2 ability. Moreover, he does have a low chance of landing a stun with his A1, and he's bringing a counterattack on himself as well, which can lead into the stun. He has a 25% chance when booked on the A1, but you obviously have the stun set there working for you as well. So I like Executioner. I also like that he has defense in all battles. It's not a huge one by 17%, but for rare only restrictive content, that can be your go-to aura. At least it is for me in a lot of areas. I think a lot of people would include a champion like Ashwalker. I love Ashwalker, but I'm not super keen, as we'll talk about later, on putting champions that already have a stun, like an AoE stun. I'm not a big, or in this case, it's not an AoE stun, but he has a single target. I'm not a big fan of, because you only have so many stun sets on your account, right? Unless you're muling and paying 1 million silver per mule to switch your artifacts. Clarium, if you're listening, give us another build option.
Never listen to you. Never, ever, again.
But I don't like putting stun on stun. I know a lot of players do out there. We'll talk more about that when we get to Barbarians. But anyway, Ashwalker is a viable candidate with a 3-turn cooldown AoE, and he's bringing a stun as well on his own A2 on a single target with turn meter manipulation. Next up, guys, we're going to go to Dark Elves. So Dark Elves, guys, I'll just give a shout out again to a legendary here, Supreme Kale. Supreme Kale, I don't know, man. Besides Supreme Galek, of course, the only one I don't freaking have, right? I was personally let down in all the Supremes. They all read really well. Like when you read their kits, you get excited about them. But to me, I don't know. Maybe I just need to try them out a little bit more, all three of them, to be fair. Dark Kale has an AoE on his A1 with Weaken that can't be resisted, another AoE with Poison that can't be resisted, and another AoE with increased accuracy. He has decreased resistance that can't be resisted as well. I mean, he has 3 AoEs, right? And what are you putting him in otherwise, right? If you're using Supreme Kale for content that's not Hydra, right? The 3 of you out there who use him, I would consider a stun set. He's got 3 strong AoEs. He's got a pretty cool kit where you don't need accuracy on him, but that plays to the stun set because nothing can be resisted, nor can the stun set be resisted, right? So I actually really like the idea of going Supreme Kale in a stun set for that reason. You know, Tremeria's kind of the same thing. She's an AoE on the A1. She brings a stun on the A2, but I don't like stacking stun on stun. She's already got a 100% chance of placing a stun. I'll save my stun set for others, like a Sylar. Sylar is already one of the queens of control in this game. So why not throw her in a stun set? Stun set with an AoE on the A1. You add the 18% chance to land a stun, or a 23 if you have Sniper. She has another AoE here, another shot on a 3-turn cooldown. Not that the cooldown really matters because she has the AoE on the A1 anyway, right? And then we have Leaden Legs, decreased speed, decreased turn meter. Man, she's great in a stun set. And then we have, I wanted to give a shout out to Gwyneth.
What took you so long?
Excuse me, I was looking for her. I'm like, where are you, Gwyneth? Gwyneth, I want to say, is like the 4th or so, maybe the 5th Doom Tower normal Secret Room champion on the normal difficulty track. She has an AoE that won't trigger counterattacks on her A1, so she can be a great stun set candidate if you're ever in one of those tricky wave situations where there's like a Valkyrie or a Martyr that has the counterattack. She can land the stuns, she can attack, and she won't get counterattacked either. So that's a really handy A1 to consider on Gwyneth as a stun set option there. I don't think there's any of my favorites here in terms of rares in Dark Elves. Let's move over to Undead Horde, guys. And again, there's quite a few legendary with AoE A1s here. There's Crypt King Graal. There's Scartorsis. He has an AoE as well on the A1. But again, my favorite, if I was going to give a shout out, is Suzerain Caton. He has an AoE with decreased speed on his A1, so already that control kind of vibe going there. Decreased speed, decreased turn meter. it stacks with stun very well because it just takes longer to get to their next turn where they're going to lose it because of the stun. So I like having the decreased speed on the same ability as a stun. I like having decreased turn meter on the same ability as a stun, right? Another AoE on the A2 and another AoE from, no, I'm sorry. I was getting him confused with, no, wait. Suzerain, doesn't he have it? Did buff from all? Okay, he does. I missed the then attacks them. It's weird how most of the time it has attacks all enemies, but then sometimes it like slides it in the middle somewhere. So yes, he has an AoE on every single ability. So a great consideration there as well. But moving on to the epics and the Undead Horde instead, there's really none that are my go-tos. I think you can get maybe a little bit outside the box and creative with Dark Elhain because this Death's Majesty, it triggers every time she's frozen or an ally is frozen. So I guess if you wanted to, you could go ham and land stuns every time this triggers here, but it's definitely not the top choice on her. I would say, don't go away yet to Ash. Banshee. Banshee's my girl. She's one of my most used stunners in the game. She has an AoE on the A1 with decreased defense. She has an AoE on the A2 on a 2-turn cooldown. So basically, you just don't even use the A3, and you just stun, or just stun with the A1 and land more decreased defenses. So she's a pretty basic champion, but she definitely is a great stun set candidate. Let's go to the Demonspawn, guys, because in Demonspawn, man, there's a ton. All right, so starting out, Prince Kymar, again, AoE on the A1. Nah, to me, he's not a stun set champion. No way. There's a billion ways to build Kymar, but I think you're throwing away some of his utility and what you can get out of other sets by throwing him in a stun set personally. But I do like Nazana in a stun set. She has an AoE on the A1. She's an attack-based champion. She's very weird. She's an attack-based champion. Actually, she's HP based, my bad. But her damage scales off attack. Is that a count? That's kind of weird, no? Anyway, she has an ally protect. She's kind of I've always thought Nazana was weird, but good, if that makes sense, right? Or decent. Anyway, she has an AoE on the A3 and AoE on the A1. Great for a stun candidate. She has support on the Unholy Contract with the ally protection and the shield as well. And then my personal fave, Infernal Baroness. Oh man, Infernal Baroness for me, she was it way back in the day when I first cleared Demonspawn Faction Wars. Her in a stun set, she helped me through the waves. She helped me with some heals as well. She has 2 AoEs on her basic on her A2, and then she has a Perfect Veil on herself on the A3. Most of the time, I didn't even use the Perfect Veil ability. I just cycled between the A2 and the A1. But again, strong AoE champion there for sure. And then, of course, my absolute favorite in the game, Abyssal. I love this little green dude, man. I don't know, I slept on him for so long after he was introduced to the game, and now he's my fave. He's got an AoE on his A1 with a 30% chance of placing block buffs. Really solid A1 for a rare. Doesn't sound like much because it's a 30% chance, 35 with Sniper Mastery, but it's really handy. It's coming clutch for me in a few different situations, like maybe against a Man-Eater or something like that. It's just helpful. He has a heal on the A2. Again, nothing about him is going to blow you away, but you put it all together, you got a really, really solid rare. So he's got an AoE heal on a 3-turn, and then he's got an increased defense and increased attack on all allies on his A3 ability. So if you don't, you can buff up. If you don't need the heals, you can just hammer away with the A1, stun everybody up, place more block buffs on there as well. I really, really love Abyssal. Not just saying that, I really love that dude, man. Like I said, grew on me. All right, here we are in Orcs, guys. You could definitely throw a stun set on Artak. Artak's so freaking good, guys. He's just insane. The ways that you can build this dude, it's too many to count. His survivability is really good because he's an HP-based champion. He's super tanky. He's got burns. He's got burn extensions. He's got burn activations, man. He's got AoEs everywhere on every ability. So if you want to add some, on top of all the damage, He's already got the survivability. If you want to add some control on wave content or even on spider, if you want to control those spiderlings for whatever reason on a burn team in progression, you can run him in a stun set. Very, very good candidate. Provided, again, sometimes you just don't need the stun set with a champion like Artak, right? Zargala, she has an AoE on a 4-turn cooldown. It attacks all enemies 3 times. Again, I repeat, you don't get 3 shots at stun, unfortunately. I wish it worked that way, but you don't. The cool thing is, though, if you kill somebody with a hard-hitting A2 on a 2-turn cooldown, the Devastate, right? If you kill the enemy, it instantly activates the crack armor, the A3, so you have more shots at landing a stun. Now, I think personally, I prefer running Zargala, not in a stun set, but rather just in Savage or Lethal Gear, but it's definitely a consideration if you need a little bit extra control. She has a shot at landing the stun on the A3, and then every time you get that instant activation as well on the AoE. Obviously, she has a shot too on her A1 and A2 just through her attacks, right? Just a single target. But we're not done yet here, guys, in Orcs. We have to mention Ironclad. Ironclad's so much fun. We have a video on him in a stun set on the Raid Shadow Legends Champion Guides YouTube channel, guys. But essentially, when he's healed, he'll attack all remaining enemies with the damage proportional to the surplus heal, okay? You don't need to worry about his damage. It's very small. It's very negligible in most situations. Very hard to get Ironclad to hit super hard, but you can throw him in a provoke, could throw him in a stun set, and he can be a control monster. Now, you do have a 1-turn cooldown, so you just can't get it back to back to back to back to back to back to back with the Bloodburst. But I personally think that building Ironclad in a stun set is absolutely the way to go to get the full utility out of this dude. Every time he takes a turn, basically any heal, you get that surplus. Even if it's doing 2 damage, you still have a shot at landing that stun there with Ironclad. All right, guys, let's move on over to my favorite Skinwalkers. They fixed the A2 of Mighty Uko, so he no longer gets they fixed the whole mechanic of stuns. It used to be if you're landing 2 hits or multiple hits, but each hit is doing something different, it was coded that when you're doing something different, like the first hit has a chance of placing a decreased defense, the second hit has a chance of placing or, doing decreased attack, whatever it may be, right? It would have 2 shots at stun. No longer the case. But he still has an AoE on his A1 and an AoE on his A2. Most importantly, he's still removing buffs from the target. So he can remove block debuffs, and then you can allow your stun to land right off the stun set. So he's still a very good champion for a stun set, even despite them kind of fixing that. Hey, a new one that I wanted to point out that I love in a stun set is Gwendolyn the Silent. Now, I don't have her, but God, this owl looks so freaking cool. I don't know, is it just me, or is the aesthetics so cool on some of these Skinwalkers? I can see people loving this design or hating this design, and I freaking love it. I grew up I grew up reading my favorite series, I think of all time, just because of my nostalgia, is a series called Redwall. Anybody know it out there? But they're in like 5th and 6th grade. Oh, I just couldn't get enough of them. And all the characters in this fantasy kind of setting are animals, right? So to me, Gwendolyn the Silent fits right into the Redwall series. Anyway, I digress. The reason I like her so much is because she has an AoE with decreased speed and leech, increased accuracy, just a really busted kit, really good. And then on the A3, another AoE on a 3-turn cooldown, but has a chance of stealing all block debuffs from all enemies. So again, you can kind of clear the way, or at least get the block debuffs out of the way so you can land those stuns on the next go round. I like that she's removing block debuffs, which can be a hurdle to negotiate on any stun champion or any stun set champion. So shout out to one of the newbies there. And then this is kind of a rare one because I don't have any rares or epics to share with you guys here in Skinwalkers, but Coronar. I mean, he's a great stun set candidate as well because he has an AoE on his A1. He already has built-in turn meter control on his A1 ability. Why not land stuns, on top of the turn meter depletion? It just makes him even more formidable. I love Coronor in a stun set as well. All right, moving on to the Ogryn tribes. So again, you can get super unorthodox and put like a Grazer in a stun set if you really can't clear a level that he's allowed in, but there's a billion million sets that he's better in my opinion. Biggin is another one. He's got an AoE on every single ability provided the first attack is critical on the A1. I actually do like Biggin quite a bit more than like a Grazer in a stun set because again, 3 AoEs and he already brings quite a bit control here. And again, we already talked about the synergy of a decreased speed and decreased turn meter all on the same ability here on Molten Slag, right? And then he's got a stun chance on the A2. And I guess I do break my own rule a little bit. I don't mind throwing a stun on this dude, right? Because he has 2 strong AoEs in addition to that ability. But the one I wanted to point out here is probably the most obvious in the whole video. Bellower, man. He's still got it, right? He's got an AoE on every ability. Decreased speed, decreased attack, decreased defense, block active skills. Why not land a stun on top of all of that? So Bellower with stun, fearsome presence, sign me up. You can't go wrong. Let's move over to Orcs, guys. I wanted to just give a quick honorable here. I wouldn't necessarily build her in a stun set. Where the heck is she? Am I? Oh, I'm in Orcs. My bad. Barbarians, Ash. Come on, dude.
And is it me?
Where is Armina?
How dare you?
Okay, she's a barbarian, dude. She has an AoE here, but like she's good to pair with another stun champion, right? She's got an AoE decrease defense, decrease the turn meter of all enemies by 25%, has a 75, make it 100% chance of placing a stun for 1 turn on enemies who have their turn meter depleted, but then fills his champion's turn meter by 10% each time an enemy receives a stun. She's not like a world-class beater. She's not an S-tier champion, but she can be good to pair with other stunners. There's quite a few good barbarians for stun sets, though. I love Contra the Cyclone. She has only one active ability with a cooldown. It's a 3-turn cooldown. If we scroll down, there's so much text on here. I know a lot of players probably look at this for the first time and they're like, yeah, 4-turn cooldown, that's it. But no, you gotta scroll down to see that level 7. A triple hitter with every debuff known to man, and you can land a stun too. Why not, right? Why not? She also has an ability where if they're under 5 or more debuffs at the start of her turn, she lands a provoke, 75% chance of it to provoke there. So the cool thing about Contra is you can build her with a stun set, and then if you go pick up, like we spoke about, if you pick up Fearsome Presence on a Contra, it's also going to apply to her provoke, bringing it up to an 80% chance on that passive, right? So you kind of get a double bonus there, and you can add the leech to it too in the whatchamacallit. Why am I totally drawing a blank? Harvest Despair? Is that what it's called? I've only said it a billion quadrillion times here on the channel. Harvest Despair, yeah. So anyway, you can like triple dip on Contra, so it's pretty cool there. I think even back in the day when we talked about Soul of the Drakes, I recommended, way back in the day when she was introduced to the game, throwing her in a stun set. Now I'm not as keen on it. I think she's way better in Relentless. Even Reflex, maybe. She's got a 2-time 35% chance. We didn't put Fushan on the list for the same reason. I just think there's only so many stun sets to go around, and do you really want to throw on a champion that already has a decent shot, 2 times 35% chance at landing a stun? Do you really want to get it up there? I'm not saying it's the worst choice in the world, and I can see why people do it, but I've moved away from recommending Soul of the Drakes in a stun set personally. It's just my own opinion on that. Would love to hear from you guys if you have an opinion as well. But the two that are there's one more that I wanted to mention, and it's actually Jetney the Giant, okay? Jetney, I don't know what it is, but she's grown on me a little bit, guys. Pretty crazy to say because she was a very, very, very lackluster fusion, sometime in the past year or so, I think, right? She's an Alsgore Crimson Horn companion champion, and he's so much better than her. Anyway, she does have a hard-hitting A2 in Barrier Breach on a 3-turn cooldown in AoE, right? And then she has another AoE ×2 hitter, which I really do think that with the 2 AoEs, and the fact that she's already has built-in ignore defense, I think you can get extra utility out of her in a stun set. It might not be my first choice. She has a chance at a stun as well on her A1, but adding damage to debuffs to stun in a kit like this, I feel like you could do a lot worse. But as I was mentioning earlier, you have to go all the way down to the rares and even the uncommons, excuse me, to find the best stunners. Let's start with the uncommon and Zephyr Sniper. She's got the AoE on the A1. She has a 30% chance of increasing the cooldown of a random skill by 1 turn, unlike 2 on Pathfinder Kate, but it's on her A1 ability. She has a continuous heal, weak version on all allies on the A2, but you can use her as a great stunner for spider or wave content. The best thing is she's fast for an uncommon at 100 speed, and she's pretty tanky for an uncommon. She's defense based and she has 1244, so Zephyr Sniper is definitely one of the best uncommons in the game. I would put her top 5, maybe top 3, but yeah, she's definitely an option for you guys. And then my favorite is Soulbound Boyer. She does some really nice damage in her kit, and she also has an AoE on the A1. All of her abilities have an extra 25% chance of inflicting a critical hit too, and she has 100% turn meter depletion when booked on the A3. So a lot of control in this kit. She's ignoring 75% defense on the A2 infused arrow. She's just one of the more, I think she, Kurzad, and why am I drawing a blank? Abyssal. They're my favorite stunners out of all the rares in the game, personally. All right, let's move it along here, guys. We're almost done.
That's amazing news.
Let's go to Sacred Order. So Sacred Order, I see some people build Cupidus in a stun set in the arena. The problem is, why are you hitting me? I feel that running Stone, if you're gonna run them with Venus in the arena, I feel like Stone Skin's just better, you know? But if you can keep him alive, or if you have like a really good reviver on the team, whatever, Cupidus and stun can be very annoying, because especially when you run Venus on the same team, he has an AoE on the A1 and always counterattacks whenever he's attacked. Okay, so I don't need to tell you why that's a decent stun consideration for you guys. Deke. Yeah, not a lot of people think about Deacon Armstrong in a stun set, but it can be a nice option for some of you guys out there. It depends, like all these champions, on how and where you're using them, right? He has a leech on the A1. He has a decreased defense on the A2. On the A3, he has turn meter manipulation, increased ally turn meter, decreased enemy turn meter. Then he has that ever so important extra turn, which leads this to essentially, in some situations, be bumped down to a 2-turn cooldown. So now we have an AoE with potentially a 2-turn cooldown, ergo the chance at landing that stun much more frequently. So I really do like Deacon Armstrong. Again, I think I would go Perception in most cases. I would advise people go Perception, but you could definitely consider going a stun set on Deacon Armstrong. Then you have a debuffer, a controller, and even more control with a stun set, all in one champion, right? Let's go to Aethel, though. Aethel is one of my favorite rares in a stun set, guys. Main reason is because we start with Divine Blades. If you're running Aethel in a stun set, I see a lot of players open up every round with Higher Blessing to get the extra turn to self buff and then go into her A2. No, 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 no. We want to start with the A3. It's unorthodox because you think you'd want to buff her up first. No, we start with the A3. It goes down to 2 turns, and then on our next turn, we're going to use this ability to get the extra turn. We're going to buff her, but we're bumping this all the way down to 1 turn, you know? So basically, similar to Deke, it's utilizing the extra turn mechanic to bring the AoE down a turn and have a more frequent shot at landing those stuns and stun locking the enemy opponents, okay? I love Aethel in general. She has a triple hitter in the big version of Weaken on the A1. I definitely think she's the most underrated out of all the starting champions out there. She's up there. I think she's up there with the best campaign farmer in the very early game out of all of the epics because of that same dynamic. She can get back to her AoE a lot quicker than the others can, with the exception, we might as well just move it right along here, of Elhain. I love Elhain as well. All the starting champions have really good stats for rares, and she has some of the best. She has the fastest speed out of all the starters at 107, which I absolutely love. She has an AoE on the A1. She attacks 1 enemy, then all enemies. She can land a stun on everybody, and then another AoE on a 3-turn cooldown on the A2. I mean, she hits really hard. She's the best, like, all-out nuker, in my opinion, out of all the starters, and she's a great option for a stun set for sure. But the high elves, man, there's a couple, like, sneaky ones here. I want to talk about Ambassador Lethalin. Ambassador Lethalin's very cool. I gotta be honest, I haven't played him a lot, but I really want to try this dude out in the stun set. He's fast at 106 speed. He's fairly tanky, good defense, all right on the HP, and AoE on this A1, right? Has a 15% chance, 30% chance when booked to placing a decreased crit rate for 2 turns. Pretty good against bosses. If this champion's HP is full, it gets bumped up to 30%. Then he has a taunt on anybody for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown, reflect damage on all allies. Pretty dang good ability, right? Putting taunt on anybody is definitely niche, but pretty cool too. Decrease the duration of 2 random debuffs on all allies. Decrease the duration of 2 random debuffs is oftentimes all you need for a full cleanse. It's close to a full cleanse. Then heals all allies by 5% of their max HP. Another 2.5 for each debuff removed, or that has duration decrease, excuse me. So overall, I think he's an excellent choice for a stun set. Definitely Ambassador Lethalin. And then the last one is going to be Battle Sage. She's got a cleanse, increase attack on all allies, then a cleanse on all allies on a 3-turn cooldown. The buff, increase attack, can't be removed. She has a revive on death on a target ally for 3 turns. Not a bad ability. She's kind of like a real budget version of Cardio, but she has Lightning Slash and AoE on her A1, right? So you can put her in a stun set if you wanted to. I mean, if you wanted to get super crazy, you could put her in a 4-piece stone skin and a stun set. You could put 2 4-pieces on her, and she won't die in the beginning of the battle. She can cleanse everybody else who's CC'd, and then you can come in and just stun the rest of the way out, right? So you can do some pretty gnarly things when you think about all the combos. The last but not least is going to be Deliana, guys. Deliana has an AoE on her A1. She's got the leech there. I mean, she has an AoE on her A2 as well. A great stun set candidate if you're looking for a control version of Deliana. However, I will say that Deliana, month after month after month, I'm continued to be surprised at how much damage she can put out. She's one of the best HP-based damage dealers in the game, behind an Eryx and a Taurus, you know? There might be like 1 or 2 others like in the conversation, but she is a sneaky DPS. But good in a stun set as well. All right, the last faction is Bannerlords. Actually, Bannerlords is the worst faction for stun sets, I think, guys. Looking through here, I don't have that many recommendations for stun sets here, honestly. None of the legendaries would only 1 legendary and really no epics and no rares. You could get absolutely wild and put like an Ursula the Mourner in a stun set. She's a great reviver, one of the best in the game. She has an AoE on a 3-turn cooldown. She's placing decrease attack and increase attack on the same ability. But if you wanted to, you could have her land a stun at the same time. Why not? Decrease attack and a stun? Sure. If you don't know what gear to put her in, might as well. It's a 3-turn cooldown. But I'm gonna be real with you guys. That's definitely not gonna be in any, guide that you go out there. Ursula the Mourner in a stun set. But I guess I say that to say that, yeah, you could always go outside the box. These are not the only champions you want to consider for stuns. Richtof the Bold is the only one out of all the legendaries who at least is in the conversation. He has an AoE on his A1 ability. But for Richtof the Bold, man, this dude, I think he needs a buff.
I don't want the word.
Maybe to his base stats to start with. Look at those. Is that a starting champion's base stats? I think Elhain's were better. I'm not even joking. He does have 3 poisons on everybody, right? On every target. But the only way, or I should say, besides like very early game, the only way people are using Richtof the Bold is in poison activation teams, at least in the mid and the late game. So in a poison activation team, there's really no need for a stun set, right? However, you could consider it. And maybe you don't have a full poison activation team. Maybe you have like an Eleanor, a Xavia, and a Richtof or something, or a Theodore and a Richtof. So you're not gonna be able to kill everybody all the time, but you have, some of that poison dynamic going on. You might have to run a hybrid team where you have some sort of methodology to control the enemies in the meantime. That's when you can consider Richtof the Bold in a stun set. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did. Had a fun time talking about all these champions. Some of them are actually, hey, did I miss? Wait a sec. Did I miss lizardmen?
That is okay.
I think I talked about Krisk and then I didn't mention anybody. Well, I'm gonna go back to you guys. I'm gonna go back. Wait, did I? Yeah, Basilisk. Basilisk. He's got the AoE on the A1. So if you're not using Basilisk to solo Sand Devil in whatchamacallit, Centranos, Soulcross, if you're not using him in Regen and Immortal, he can definitely be a viable stun set with an AoE on the A1, and he brings a single target stun guaranteed or 100% land rate on a 3-turn cooldown on his A2s. So you can make him all out control and damage in a stun set. Sorry for missing Lizardmen, guys. I'm looking at my list and I'm like, wait, I didn't mention Basilisk. So guys, there you have it. Now we can end the video. Much love. Thank you for watching all the way till the end. And as always, take care, guys.